Good afternoon, how are you all doing? I felt compelled to talk to you, haven't spoken to you as a group for ages. I see some of you when you come in to do your rota, and I speak to lots of you via email, but I've got quite a few things I wanted to talk to you about, mostly around well-being and the future, so I thought it was time to talk to you face to face. First of all, thank you. Thank you to all of you and all the hard work you're putting in, putting lessons online, feeding back. Those of you that are making contact with our vulnerables, really, really appreciated. And thank you to all of you who are coming in and doing your rota and entertaining our students in school, who are turning out to be quite a handful, interestingly. Okay, so I really want to talk to you about well-being. Well-being of you, well-being of your family, and the well-being of the students that you're in communication with. I need to talk to you about what that is. I will try not to teach granny to suck eggs, because a lot of you probably know most of this, but I just think it's important that I share my thoughts with you. Mental well-being is really important. It's not a state of mind, it's a spectrum, and at any time we can be anywhere along that spectrum, and it could be yearly, monthly, or even minute by minute. We can change how we're feeling. And how we're feeling really impacts on our ability to complete tasks, to be motivated. So don't be alarmed if there are some days when you've got no motivation, when you're just finding it really difficult to get your head around things. Just walk away from it, is my advice. In the current situation, on that mental health well-being spectrum, you should expect to feel anxious. In fact, the majority of people in the country are probably sitting stationary at the anxious point, and that is not surprising. There's an element of that being good, because if we're a little bit anxious, then we carry on washing our hands, we carry on reminding people to social distance. But don't be surprised if anxious is your resting state, and that's why you should be always looking to yourself to self-reflect and give yourself time out. So what will we be feeling anxious about at the moment, and what emotions are we going to be feeling at the moment? Well, the first and key one, for a lot of people there will be an emotion of grief. Actual grief if you've lost loved ones, but grieving for the norm, grieving for situations that we're used to, grieving for that lack of familiarity and that lack of consistency, and those things which keep us mentally well. So think about what grieving feels like, and think sometimes you will probably be in that state. Certainly as a teacher, I know that I as a leader and you as a teacher, I've been asking myself, what's my purpose now? I'm a teacher, I'm a leader in a school, and I'm not doing that. So have I got a purpose? Have I got a direction? And that is a question that I ask myself, and that's something that I stress about. So again, you have got a purpose, you're still a teacher. It's just very unusual. And of course, the future, fear is a big one. Every decision we make now about whether to come into school or not, when the school will reopen, may have an element of fear in it, and the fear that we're doing the right thing for ourselves and our health, if we're doing the right thing for our family and their health. So I get that there'll be an element of fear, and we'll work on that together, and we'll work on that how we look. Now our students, all of those feelings of anxiety will be based around uncertainty and that lack of familiarity and that lack of routine. And for our year 11s, what's going to happen in August is a big deal for them. So think about that when you're making your tutor emails and you're contacting students, however you do it, that what they need from you is some form of certainty and some form of regularity. Okay, let's go back to that. What's my purpose as a teacher? A lot of feelings for me at the moment centre around feelings of being out of control. So I need to reassure you that there are some things you can't control, and there are some things you can control. So you need to put aside the things you can't control and focus on the things you can control. You can't control learning outcomes for the students at the moment, so don't even try. You can't control parental engagement in the online learning. So you can't make them comply. If they're not going to comply, they won't. And you cannot have the same level of safeguarding and care that we would have if we were in the classroom or in the corridors with those students. So don't try. What you can control is how you connect with the students and how frequently you connect with the students and how you support those feelings of uncertainty for them. You can also give them some feedback. Not huge amounts, because I don't want you to give them huge amounts, but a little bit of feedback will help them with their learning outcomes. And finally, on that safeguarding, you can control taking care of them, and you can control keeping an eye on them and passing on any concerns you have to us. It's not going to be at the same level, but it will be there. So put aside learning outcomes and focus on a little bit of feedback and that connectivity with them. So a little bit more on that connectivity and how we support the students when we set work. Okay, give them routines. They will expect work from you. Give it to them. You're doing that anyway, and I went and had a look at some of the Google calendars of our students today, and they've all got lots of work and they've all got things to be doing, and you are giving them routines. So keep up with those routines and that connectivity, because that really works. Can you reassure Year 10s that the work they're doing is not going to have a massive impact on their final GCSE? We are going to start having to think about introducing new material to them, but we're going to be meeting with heads of department tomorrow, and we're going to be looking at how that looks, so don't worry about that too much. It's just reassuring them. If you think about it, they've only missed 17 days of lessons at the moment. It feels like it's been a massive gap since the last time we saw them, but we've had Easter. They've missed 17 days out of the school year, which averages 195. So we need to minimise that feeling of fear and panic by reassuring them that this isn't having a massive impact on their learning. So that's with the Year 10s. Why don't you give them a chance to connect with each other? I mean, the thing that they enjoy most at school is seeing their mates, and for half of them that's the reason they come into school. So are there any online tasks you can give them where they can FaceTime their friends and work on something together, because it gives them that feeling of connectivity? So that's just an idea, and if you can think about doing that for all year groups, that would be a really nice way to give them that feeling of family and community. So finally, the future, the reopening of schools. Now, I'm getting lots of reassurance from the unions that we will have to secure the 5 aims that the government have put in place before we will reopen schools, and that it will be very carefully guarded, and the unions are doing their best to protect us to make sure it's safe for us to return. And that is still foremost in my mind. Everybody will have an opinion as to whether it's safe for us to return or not, and we will work on that together with the unions. Now, we're going to have some time to plan returning to school. And the aim that I have got is that I will share our planning with you. Leadership are meeting and discussing that tomorrow, so please don't worry about that. We're going to have to look at new rules that might be in place. We're certainly going to have a look at addressing our grief, maybe a 1-minute silence for anybody in the area that we've lost, for families, etc. We're certainly going to celebrate achievements, things that the students have done while they've been self-isolating. And we're going to have to put some extra time aside to share all this with our students. We're going to have to give some reflection time, both in assemblies, if we're allowed to have them, and tutor time. We're going to have some time to talk about those new rules and how they will operate, again, in tutor time or in assemblies. And there is going to have to be some extra time put aside for those students who are really vulnerable, the ones that we know will be suffering the most at the moment, and there's going to be some opportunities for them to have some one-to-one, and I'm hoping the government will pay for us to have more counselling for those students, but I will keep you posted. So there's a lot to think about around well-being, what you're doing now and what will happen in the future. But I just want to reassure you that however you're feeling right now, go with it. You're allowed to feel like that. You'll feel different tomorrow, and maybe you'll feel different again the next day. You're not alone. We're all feeling like that at the moment, especially our leaders, so don't worry. You're doing a fantastic job. Thank you ever so much, and I look forward to talking virtually to the heads of department tomorrow. Have a good day, everyone. See ya.